Okay. Little look behind the curtain. European transfer window closed today, Thursday, January 30th. In our infinite wisdom, your boys, we recorded this week's episode Wednesday, January 29th. We had most of it covered. I feel pretty good about it. But as you can imagine, some pretty significant last-minute deadline day deals that got done here today. Mr. Grant Engle, before we get to the main episode that we recorded last night, what did we miss during last night's recording that we need to cover here up top?
Yes, turns out there are some pretty big pieces of business. I think we've narrowed it down to 5 players who have been moved after we recorded yesterday. I think we should talk about those 5.
Let's go. Where do you want to get started?
All right, first we're going to get started because it's a new night and a new recording. I mean, I think I found ourselves an excuse to have a beer tonight.
Love it. Our first frosty beverage of the show. Shout out to our guy, Raj Bennett. Cheers.
Of course, the legend. Cheers to him. Cheers to you as well. I think we got to get started with Keira Walsh, who we do talk about later in this episode, but now it's official. Emma Sanders of the BBC reported that Chelsea paid Barcelona somewhere around 800,000 euros for Keira Walsh to add her into the Chelsea midfield. Buddy, how you feeling?
I mean, I think we knew this was coming. If she was going to end up at Arsenal, I think it would have happened by now. Gotta say, Chelsea's stacking them up over there in West London. I mean, not only do they get one of the best players in the world, they take one of the best players in the world, one of the most important players of the world, from one of the other best teams in the world, Barcelona.
Yep.
A huge win for Chelsea. I mean, I'm probably the biggest Keira Walsh fan I think there is. I love her game. I went back and tabulated some numbers. Last 3 seasons for club and country. How about, this is so ridiculous, 119 matches played, 101 wins, 10 draws, and 8 losses. That's like some Julio Cesar Chavez shit.
Absolutely
phenomenal record. Total winner. I think she's going to fit in seamlessly in Chelsea.
No doubt. Emma Sanders also mentioned in her article that, obviously we all know Chelsea is without longtime midfielder Sophie Ingle. Keira Walsh can kind of step in, fill in that role for the midfield a little bit. I want to go back to, not to throw salt in the wound here, but you mentioned Arsenal. From that Sanders article in the BBC, quote, Walsh's preference has always appeared to lean toward Chelsea, end quote. Sorry, buddy. I don't know. Maybe she just thinks blue suits her better. Maybe she, wants to play for Sonia Bonpastor. Can't fault her for that. But I think you were right. If Walsh wanted to go there, the deal probably would have been done a while ago.
Yeah, totally agree with that. She would fit so nicely. A great, maybe like sort of Kim Little replacement as Kim kind of ages out a little bit.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Chelsea now have another absolute superstar. It's kind of like having 2 quarterbacks, like her and Germa back there in terms of distribution. It's just like once they retake possession, it's like now the ball can pretty much go anywhere.
Yeah.
Let's skip ahead, though. A little bit of good news for my Lady Gunners.
There we go.
Chloe Kelly, 27 years old.
Salute to you, Chloe. Thank you for your service to Manchester City Football Club. Obviously scored the legendary winner for the Lionesses in the 2022 Euros, national hero over there. She brings speed. She brings a direct level of play to the attack. I think that's going to be interesting. Part of the issue was she wasn't happy with her playing time at Manchester City, so I'll be interested to see how she gets into the rotation in Arsenal with the attacking players that you have over there. Now, obviously, it's a loan to the end of the season, so she's not going to be eligible to play in either the next WSL match versus City or the League Cup match versus City. So that's a little bit of a drawback, but I think Arsenal probably just wants to get her in the rotation and see how she fits.
Yeah, and I think she's going to be really motivated. She's spoken about her desire to log minutes, put forward performances that kind of would get her back, up to the upper echelon of, Lionesses selections heading into the Euros.
Yep.
So interestingly enough, Chloe Kelly joined Arsenal's academy at the age of 12. Didn't know that. Professional debut for Arsenal at 17. Last year for City, 21 WSL appearances, 5 goals, 5 assists for the Lionesses, 48 caps, 7 goals to her name. This one was interesting. I looked at kind of like the age profile of this Arsenal side. So 28 years old, you've got Caldente, Stina Blackstenius. 29 years old, Beth Mead, Katie McCabe, Lena Hurtig. Caitlin Ford is 30. Steph Catley's 31. Leah Valti's 31. Kim Little, 34. That's a lot of players on the back half of 25. Chloe Kelly, 27 years old, not going to quite drag the average age down very, very far, but really good to kind of have like a young player who could play on that left-hand side, maybe spell Caitlin Ford, who got pulled from the Chelsea match, Probably precautionary, it looked like, for an injury. But I don't know. I think it's a really good injection. We're getting a motivated Chloe Kelly with some room to play on the field, with some room within the lineup. I think, this is a team where she's going to get some opportunities and maybe extended opportunities based on where she's at and just kind of her level of, hey, I want to go out there and perform.
Yeah, 100%. And I think any City fan will tell you, they've seen Kelly and Hemp would switch left and right side through stretches of play. So she can be relatively versatile as well. And the blazing speed is it's always a plus. If you bring her on in the 65th or something like that, she can really hurt your opponent. Later in the episode, you'll hear, not to spoil everything, but we talk about City's reported reluctance to send Chloe Kelly to either Manchester United or just another contender in general. So I guess they don't have to worry about sending her to a contender because she went to Arsenal. Just been waiting all day for that.
Moving on. This is a player we didn't get to talk about. Adriana from the champion, the NWSL. Double winners, Orlando Pride. Adri, we'll miss you. Go get your bag. It's been great. I think she's going to fit in really well in the Saudi League. I mean, a spectacular player. And I think they kind of are paying for highlights, really.
Sure.
And a pretty nice bit of business for Orlando. What were your main takeaways from this transaction?
Yeah, I think the fee was pretty head turning, really. I mean, not because buying her contract isn't worth $500,000, but just the fact that is the third highest outgoing transfer fee ever paid to an NWSL club. I think you're right. I think from everything that I've been able to Google, it looks like the club's name is pronounced Al-Qadsiya. Well, we'll go with that for now. If you guys have the correction in the comments, please hit me up.
No arguments here.
But yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see what Orlando does with that money. There's still some time to sign players for your squad. And like you said, I can't imagine that when they purchased Adriana's contract from Corinthians years ago, I think they used some allocation money that they used from when they sold Alex Morgan's contract. So I got to imagine they turned quite a profit on that. And now I'm excited to see who they sign. But I'm also curious how we can watch the Saudi Women's Pro League. How can we get our mitts on that? Because we don't need Adriana to be out of our lives completely unless she's playing for Brazil. So I got to figure out, okay, what streaming network is that league on?
Yeah, that's fair. I feel like it might be fertile ground for DAZN. We'll see. As far as Orlando, I think it does open up some space for players like Summer Yates, Julie Doyle, Ali Watt from an attacking standpoint. And like I said, I'll miss Adriana because she was a big play, spectacular finisher. You couldn't really count on her to be that kind of productive, match in, match out. But when she was feeling it, her highlight level stuff was, at the very top of the league. In my mind, I think Orlando, good bit of business, but also I think the Saudi League's going to get their money's worth for what she's going to be able to produce against, got to be lesser competition out there.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how they manage it, how they are able to recruit talent. I guess maybe this kind of spoils one aspect of how the Saudi League will recruit talent. And I'm going to take a wild guess that is lots of money. So I know they will use that.
Yep. Use it if you got it. Couple more names on the list. Where do you want to go from here?
Okay, we've waited long enough. We have to get to the legend, Crystal Dunn. As reported by Tom Gary of The Guardian, she passed her physical, and Crystal Dunn is heading to Paris Saint-Germain. She's an all-timer with the U.S. women's national team in the NWSL. She is the ultimate Swiss Army knife. You want to play her at forward, you want to play her on the wing at midfielder, you want to play her as a left back, go ahead. Put her wherever you want. You could probably play her at defensive midfielder if you wanted to. She has more than 100 starts in the NWSL, and I think people who have watched our program for a while know she's one of my favorite players ever. I believe she was one of the most important players in the 2019 World Cup, and I look forward to continuing to watch her play for PSG because I like to watch PSG play.
Yeah, love that she landed there. I think she is going to fit in. When you think about the personality of her game, I think is going to fit in really well with kind of like the little sister nature of PSG.
Sure.
A little bit in the shadow of Lyon. Le Parisien reported that Dunn will sign a 2.5-year deal with the French club. So that's exciting. That's quite the commitment. We'll get into this a little bit later in the episode, but we talked about Caroline Bunny-Shaw, maybe Jenna Neismar, not maybe being ready to kind of roll out there and start balling. I think Crystal Dunn, she steps off the plane. I got to imagine she's ready. You could just
I bet.
toss her a kit. She'll lace them up and be, basically the Crystal Dunn that we all know and love. I also kind of like that from a U.S. Women's National Team standpoint, she'll be able to kind of throw an arm around Corbin Albert, Eva Gaetino, and have a little bit of a USWNT contingent out in Paris. That's kind of exciting. Congrats to Crystal Dunn. Hopefully it's a move she's excited about.
Gotta think she is. So I'm excited to see her play. I think we got one more player, my good man.
Let's do it.
All right. Laura Weinrother coming to City from your Gooners. I think this move was actually, if I understood the reporting correctly, I think at first it was kind of dangling there and it was contingent upon the Chloe Kelly transfer or the loan, over to Arsenal. Obviously, it gets done. The 26-year-old Austrian defender is coming back from an ACL injury, which I think when she suffered that injury, I don't think it was too long after that where Arsenal signed Emily Fox. And Weinrother just looking for more minutes. And I got to tell you, as somebody who has raised questions about City's defending at times, I think she's going to get those minutes because you got to give her a look.
Absolutely. I really like the pickup for City. Kind of bolsters their defense. And you got to imagine that Jenna Niswanger, her deal getting inked this week probably did mean the end for Weinrother. But glad she'll end up at City. Weinrother's last big stretch of involvement for Arsenal, 2022-23 season, 17 matches played, 11 starts that year. So probably a good breath of fresh air.
For sure. Really excited to see her play. I mean, she played for our old pal St. Polten and helped that team win a double when she was just a teenager. She has 35 caps for Austria, was involved in the 2022 Euros for Austria. I think they made the group stage, if I remember correctly. So yeah, more defenders for City. That's kind of what I was hoping to see. And they just kind of have to move around the rotation and figure out who's going to fit where and who plays best with the midfield and, try to go win a Champions League.
With that said, let's get to this week's episode.
See you there.
Okay, welcome to Into the Channel podcast, primarily about women's football. Before we hit the pitch, if you enjoy the show or love women's football as much as your boys do, come kick it with us already. Subscribe, follow YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to watch or listen. Leave us a review over your favorite podcast app. Links to all of our socials in the show notes of this episode. I am your host, Dino DeCespedes, and we are joined by my co-host, Mr. Grant Engel. What is up, man?
I'm feeling all right, buddy. I mean, hanging in there, all things considered. Trying to watch for some news, interesting football news, and then other news, maybe I'll get to that eventually.
Yeah, less than fantastic news. We'll just call it for short. No, I definitely hear that. Either way, glad to be back with you this week. Tons of football news, both on the pitch and off. Very excited to get into it with you. Before we get started, though, quick look ahead. It's almost here. Next Friday, February 7th, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, your boys will be live on YouTube to break down all four UEFA Women's Champions League quarterfinal matchups after the draw takes place. Barca, Lyon, Chelsea, Bayern, Arsenal, City, Wolfsburg, Real Madrid. All 8 teams also in action this weekend. So where do you want to get started?
Buddy, I think, unfortunately, the only logical place for us to start is in that London derby. My condolences, but let's talk about it because I think it was a pretty interesting game. Chelsea 1, Arsenal 0.
Fair enough. I can crack a sad beer. You could crack a happy beer if you like. But
sure. I mean, not happy.
Semi-sad beer.
That's fair. Not happy because of what happened to you. Obviously, I root for your squad as well when they're not playing my squad.
Cheers. I appreciate that.
Yeah, cheers to that.
And maybe next week we'll start with Arsenal's big 5-0 win over Bristol City in Women's FA Cup. Talk about that one later.
There you go.
First impressions, Arsenal-Chelsea. Good God, Chelsea are loaded. When they showed just the lineup cards, who they had at their disposal to come off the bench was just absolutely unfair. In this one, though, Mark Donaldson, Ali Krieger on the call. Ali Krieger drops 2 touch tights within the first 6 minutes of the match, and I think 2 within a 10-second span. I think, in my mind, I just pictured Lori Lindsay doing some push-ups somewhere, getting ready for, I don't know, who knows, the return of the NWSL. But Arsenal started slow. I'll say that Chelsea had the good chances early, but there was a really good stretch there from the 25th minute to the 40th minute, where Arsenal really started to pour it on. Prior to that, it was a lot of rushed football, a lot of panicked football. And I think they kind of hit their groove, right around the halfway point of the first half.
I always like that as an encouraging sign. Obviously, we're not going to treat Arsenal like they're some kind of plucky underdogs. But I do think when the other side, in those rare occurrences where the other side has clearly more talent than Arsenal. It's good to survive those first 15 minutes, because how often do you see the juggernauts in this sport like Chelsea, Lyon, and Barca pour one in within the first 7 minutes? Mm-hmm. Survive that and then kind of get your feet under you and then really make it a half after that. I thought that was a good sign from him.
Yeah, definitely a good sign. I mean, there was a moment where JRK roughs up Beth Mead on a tough challenge. And I'm just like, good God, like not only are they going to be just better and more skilled, but they're going to be tougher than us. I mean, that was a rough look. Yeah. This one, though, goes into halftime 0-0. Second half, Micah Hamano comes on to start the second half for Myra Ramirez, who had been pretty well neutralized by the Arsenal defense. I will say that defensively, I think what they were doing was impressive. Arsenal definitely benefited from Shuka Nuskin just ripping shots from everywhere and like just kind of stink-eyeing other players when she wasn't getting the ball, which is pretty funny. Something to keep an eye on for sure. But as the game wears on, you just look at, I don't know, Sandy Baltimore. What was this? The 57th minute, who had played really, really well. She comes off, Lauren James comes on.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I mean, the depth really is where there's just not that many teams in the world, if any, that can compete from a depth standpoint with this Chelsea side. As mentioned, they brought on Hamano. Then they bring on Guro Wright a little bit later, Aggie Beaver-Jones to kind of close it out. And it's just like that level of firepower is pretty much off the charts. They're still waiting for Naomi Girma to suit up, even though she did make a quick appearance before this one kicked off. But yeah, like the depth, you look at Ashley Lawrence, Vika Kaptein, they didn't even play.
Yeah.
On the bench. Just like these are just players that can't find minutes in a match like this. And then I don't want to say a tough call. You know, Kim Little definitely fouls Lauren James late in the match. And the move that Lauren James puts on that Arsenal defense, you know, just to kind of get everything off balance and then end up drawing, like you just kind of felt like that sequence was going to end poorly for Arsenal.
Right.
I mean, a tough call, but I think the right call ultimately.
Yeah.
And then you add insult to injury, the Katie McCabe red card. You hate to see a player with that many years under her belt do that, because that effectively ended the title run. I think you still have roughly 10 minutes of ball where you can maybe get an equalizer, see what happens late. You know, Arsenal has some good late game magic last season.
Yeah.
And this one was tight. You can't really say that it was over when Chelsea goes up 1-0. But after the McCabe red card, it just put a massive damper on whatever was left of this match.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on most of these accounts. I think the Little foul, and shame on me, I don't know if I've ever said this. Maybe I've alluded to it before, but Seattle Reign FC legend Kim Little. I don't know why. I feel like I need to say that every single time, but I think you're right. It was a foul, you know, and LJ was just going to make the move to either draw that foul or create enough space. Something bad was probably going to happen there. I agree with you there.
Yep.
And yeah, I don't know what magic words Katie McCabe was saying to the referee, but she was clearly furious. And I don't think it was warranted if it was strictly about the call. There had to be something else that she was mad with the referee about. So, because to see that outsized of a reaction, you're totally right. To see a vet do that, pretty strange.
She had been showing frustration throughout the match for sure. But that one, what was so disappointing about it was like not really about the foul. It was a game situation explosion. It was like, sure. I'm really upset about the game situation. Now Chelsea's going to get a PK, 80-something minute in the match. Everybody knows what the standings look like. Everybody knows what, you know, the rest of the match probably has in store.
Right.
Which again, you appreciate Katie McCabe's energy, you know, and like the vibe and like her intensity. But at that moment, it's just kind of like, there just was no getting back into the match. Like it was just basically door slammed shut on a match that was highly, highly competitive and probably could have gone either way, really.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I think it's always easy for two dopes sitting on their couch watching the match to say, but it is just true. Like, I mean, you know, anybody who works in high pressure situations, you just got to keep your composure sometimes and realize that, hey, if I push something too far, then I'm putting my teammates or my colleagues in a bad spot. You don't want to do that. I want to go back real quick. You had mentioned the Beth Mead chance. You had mentioned, you know, this kind of being back and forth. You know, Beth Mead, I think she's in the top 10 all time in WSL scorers. I think she's the all-time assist leader also. That is one of those moments. I think it's why I'm just a firm believer, and you know I love a good sports cliche, but when you are an underdog, it's so good to get one early. And if Beth Mead was able to control that one in the first half, I think it just took a little too much time for her to bring the ball under control, get it to her foot, and I think it was Niamh Charles who got the block on it. And it was just like, I think there are several other situations. If you played that play back 10 times, it might be like 40% that Bethmead probably scores there.
The match ended with I think both teams even on big chances. I thought Alessia Russo, even before that Bethmead chance, like her work rate was just awesome. And I think she was just putting a ton of pressure on the defense. And that, I think, lifted the spirits or the confidence, however you want to think about that, of that Arsenal side, kind of turned the volume down on the panic and the rushing. And I think that's kind of where they really grabbed control of the match. And on one hand, it's encouraging. I was listening to the Leanne show. I mean, she was not happy. He was talking about like getting just like clearing the deck. Let's do like scrap it. Let's start all over. I am sympathetic to a little bit of that. I think in my notes I wrote down that this team reminds me a lot of that Arsene Wenger, Alexander Lacazette team, where it was just like they play really beautiful football, they knock it around, but it's like against the top competition, the ability to kind of like finish and close the match or claw their way back into the match against a tough team. It's just not something that you expect week in, week out. But I think defensively, I think I was a little bit encouraged. But yeah, like we talked about, the door was just open, just so. And I think as far as Arsenal in competition for the league, I think that's over now. But we could talk about City, who's sitting a point ahead of Arsenal after 12 matches. They get a big win at Villa. What'd you see in that one?
Yeah, I think we talked about it last week. I said, going into this, I was expecting a convincing victory, and I think they delivered on that, 4-2. Now, they did go down 1-0, and Villa later equalized, but they had 62% of the ball. They had 18 total shots to Villa's 3. They had 8 shots on target to Villa's 1. One of Villa's goals was an own goal and I realized they didn't concede a lot of chances, so I'm not trying to, poor mouth my team, as I always say. There are just moments where the defense just looks way too stretched on the counter, and sometimes not even like a full counter attack. Just like if the other team wins the ball in the midfield, our defense just looks way too spread out. And what Chastity Grant was able to do, taking the ball up the wing, and she just created a little bit of space herself with a nice move to just kind of like push off the opponent a little bit and rip that shot. That is just something that if you are going to play against Lyon or Chelsea in the next round of the Champions League, you might be in real trouble if you give up chances like that.
Yeah, absolutely. The defense definitely looked thin.
Yeah.
Obviously, Alana Kennedy moves on. We'll talk about like some of the transfer news later. Offensively, I mean, this was like a City offense type game where they kind of just leaned on their finishing. Viviana Miedema just
pretty good. Yeah, turns out.
You talked about top 10. How about top 1 for old Viv? Shout out to announcer Tom Gale, too, who dropped a couple different into the channels within the first 6 minutes. The second one happened right before Chastity Grant's goal. So that was exciting. I'm not sure if it was coincidence. We'll never know. But the second Miedema goal, the absolute screamer, not a goalkeeper on the planet, male or female, is getting near that. From that distance to just tickle the bottom of the corner of the crossbar like with that much velocity on it, unbelievable.
The turn is so great because it's like she knows just enough how to hit the ball, just enough to get it to the right spot so she's able to set herself and just fire full extension. I mean, yeah, unbelievable shot. Such a great shot that I think even Tom Gale kind of referenced it later. Mary Fowler scored a great goal. And it's just one of those things where you're like, really great goal. Not quite as good as Miedema's, though. It's just like, well, damn. I mean, that's still an awesome goal by Mary Fowler. It's like, it's weird to kind of get outshined by your teammate after you score a banger from like 20 yards out. But, Miedema, that's just who she is.
Yeah. I mean, to say I'm terrified going into this weekend would be an absolute understatement. What else did you see in this one?
So Bunny Shaw played football. That was cool.
Let's go.
I liked seeing that. And this, this is just kind of what it was. Bunny Shaw looked like she hadn't played in a competitive league match since December 8th, 2024. And so I don't hold that against her, but I'll just say she looked like she had to get back in the swing of things. Totally natural. I didn't love that, she went down. She got clipped on the right foot, and it was just that she got cleated. And easy for me to say just got cleated. I'm sure that hurt like hell. But when she goes down, we have to now live in a state of when she hits the ground after a shot like that, you just are holding your breath for 15 seconds before she gets up, before you see the replay to understand what it is. But great to see her on the field.
Yep, 100%. And Bunny Shaw, obviously, much anticipated return. Another anticipated appearance from a new player in Sky Blue, Caroline. What'd you see from Caroline?
Let's go. Yeah, so she comes on with Shaw, double substitution, 77th minute. And, similar to Bunny Shaw, Caroline looked like she was coming out of the preseason. So, hard to blame her for that. So, looked a little bit of rust on both of those players. There was a very cool moment. I think they may have been on maybe less than 5 minutes, somewhere in that ballpark, where Bunny Shaw played Caroline in, and she was offside. But when she played her in, and the Brazilian would have had a pretty good chance at having a run in on goal, I was like, okay, that's the bones of what we want to see going in. So obviously, they both got to get up to speed. They both got to get their actual match legs under them. But when they do, I think that should be pretty favorable.
Yeah, let's hope that that's not this weekend. I wanted to take a quick look at the WSL table. So Chelsea kind of running away with it, 7 points clear, 10 matches to go. And then a real dogfight for those second and third place Champions League spots. Man United sitting on 27, City on 25, Arsenal on 24. What a fall from grace for your boy. Sitting in second place last week, hoping for a big win. You try to say, hey, maybe they can squeak by. That'd be awesome for you. And I'm like, no, need more than that. Let's up the ante. Just a hugely disappointing loss. And now my Lady Gunners are in fourth, outside of the Champions League zone. So this one's going to be a big one. You mentioned it, some heavy hitters coming back for City. Where's your head at for this game? What are you going to be expecting?
I have bad news for you. You're going to get cooked. Now, let me... No, I expect it to be relative. It's going to be competitive. You guys have a good side. They're going in. They're obviously playing at City, so is going against you a little bit. But with our defense looking as stretched, I'm just going to keep using the word stretched because there are just moments where I'm just like, why is everybody so far apart? Or why does the attacking players have so much space to operate? Obviously, we don't want 12 and under ball here where everybody's in one big bunch kicking the ball at the same time. But I also would like to maybe cut off some running lanes, cut off some passing lanes occasionally. So am I feeling confident? I will say I am. I think we're going to win the game, but I don't think it's going to be because you guys are totally outmatched. I think it's going to be an even match. The squads are pretty close, especially considering all of City's injuries, but I still think you got to find a way to get it done if you're City at this point. Put that nail in the coffin of your Lady Gunners.
Yeah, I hear that. And that could certainly happen after this weekend with a bad result. I just have a huge fear that this is going to be the Viv Miedema game. A lot of talk about how Viv was able to just leave on a free transfer and just fit right into that squad and just start knocking in goals of all sorts, really. And this just seems to be the kind of situation where a player like that is like, I'm gonna make them feel it.
Yeah.
At home. And she's in great form.
100%. Sorry, I don't mean to be furiously searching this. I just want to make sure I got my facts right here. So you want to talk about the Viv Miedema game. Obviously, we know that she's the all-time leading scorer in the history of the league. She's the quickest to reach 50 goals. She's the quickest to reach 100 goal involvements. She has 78 career league goals. She has the most hat tricks in the history of the league with 5. But if you want to talk about the Viv Miedema game, I'm going to take us back to December 1st, 2019 versus Bristol City for your Lady Gunners in an 11-1 victory. Viv scored 6 goals. Now, I don't think she's going to get to 6. I feel pretty good. Back-to-back braces in the league. I think she might get 2 against your Gunners.
Yeah, over 1.5 super live roll Viv. We'll see what kind of magic Renee Segers can whip up defensively. I think that's really what it's going to come down to. Like you see Villa, able to put 2 on the board, 1 obviously an own goal. So I think the chances are going to be there, and it's going to come down to whether Arsenal can kind of slow down that City attack and take advantage of chances on the other end. I would like to see Arsenal kind of steady the ship.
Yeah.
And now it's another tough game with. I don't know. Could you say that this one has higher stakes than the Chelsea match? I think you could because of the Champions League. And
yeah, I think that's totally fair. And you got to remember, we're playing you again in 5 days in the League Cup. So you can see a lot of Manchester City in the near future. And it's still very live that we draw each other in the Champions League, which, let me just go back to talking more shit. I hope we do draw you because I don't want to play Lyon.
Look at this guy. A couple signings
I don't want to play Lyon or Chelsea. I'd much rather play your team.
All right. Well, wait till one Jen and Niswanger suits up for the.
Let's go.
Talk about that later.
Mm-hmm.
And the McCabe suspension, obviously a bummer, as well. I don't think Niswanger is going to be ready. Even if that were on the table, probably could expect some preseason form from Jenna as well.
Sure.
I want to talk a little bit about the transfers because last show we got into it a little bit, NWSL versus WSL, and it was a little bit tongue in cheek. What's going to happen? So and so they're monitoring the Trinity Rodman situation. All of a sudden now, if that Trinity Rodman situation gets escalated from just monitoring to like now there's some kind of negotiations happening, it might be time to hit the panic button for the league. And I saw a lot of talk today specifically. The league's fine, still competitive, still the most competitive league, still the best league, et cetera, et cetera. Sure, but there's only so much talent that could walk out the door and that still hold.
Yeah.
Because now, Gedoline's comments, I thought about that pretty much all week, where she's saying, I need to go to a place that's going to prepare me differently than the NWSL will. You can't really overlook the fact that like Alana Kennedy, who we also mentioned, headed back the other way from City now to Angel City. She very clearly could not defend at the highest level in the WSL and the Champions League. Like it could just be it's a stylistic change coming back to the NWSL. But now it's Girma, it's Gedoline, it's Niswanger, who obviously wasn't a world beater, but a recognized player,
sure, like
an established U.S. women's national team player. There was rumors about Sam Coffey and Chelsea flirtation, and then there was a little bit of ire from the general internets about, if Emma Hayes is sort of like guiding all of our U.S. women's national team talent over to England and to Chelsea specifically. Tarsiane, another one.
Oof.
I mean, what's going on here? And at what point, does the panic button need to get smashed here?
So I think it's interesting because we're coming off a year where Barbara Banda, Rachel Kundanaji, and Temwa Chawinga came into the NWSL, right? So like panic is a strong word. It's a great sports talk show word. Should they panic? Is it time to hit the panic button? Don't panic. All that stuff. I get it. I will say the Tarsiane signing to Lyon, that caught me off guard. And to see the price tag and to know that Lyon saw the value in that and was like, yeah, look, we saw what Houston Dash did last year, but anybody with a brain who watches football and who likes football knows that Tarsiane is going to be even better than she is now, and she's already quite good. That one caught me off guard to be like, what is exactly happening here? Because if the other big clubs, and we had some folks, talk to us about it in the YouTube comments of like, well, just abolishing the salary cap doesn't fix it. And to all the folks who were saying that, we haven't replied to every comment yet. But you're right. I mean, I don't mean to say like, yeah, abolish the salary cap and everything will be fine. Like, obviously, you'll need to establish like revenue sharing and like, honestly, I know this is going to sound crazy. Some of the stuff that Major League Baseball does to like be a salary capless sport that's still, I think there have been 9 different World Series winners in the last 12 years. Like you could still create some kind of competitive balance. But the thing that I think people should be more afraid of than if you abolish the salary cap, then Angel City and Gotham and Washington Spirit will be the 3 best teams and they'll dominate. If these clubs don't start paying the competitive salaries, just Chelsea, Lyon, and Barcelona are just going to keep getting better overseas in the because they're trying to win the Champions League.
Absolutely, and they aren't facing those same limitations,
right?
And they're in an arms race against each other. So you look at one chess move is Girma to Chelsea for over $1 million, and now you have Tarsiane to Lyon, the same position, for just under $1 million.
Yep.
It's hard not to see the counter move nature of those two. All the while, 2 massive talents plucked from the NWSL. So,
right.
I mean, I don't have the answer. Collective bargaining agreement, salary cap, the international slots, the allocation, all of that stuff is those are the mechanics of it.
Yeah.
But I definitely do know that it just cannot be that the grand perception is that the better football is played over there.
Right.
And if you want to play the best football, you have to go over there. Like that really does harm the league.
That is such a good point. And we can only lean on we're the most competitive league stuff until whatever the tipping point is. Too many great great, recognizable, worldwide players go over there. Because then you can be the most competitive league in the world. But if you're the most competitive league with a bunch of, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but a bunch of players who are non-marquee players just playing a bunch of really competitive games, people still want to see the stars.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, I don't know, we like to cross sports here, but think about college football. It's like, okay, Conference USA is the most competitive conference. It's like, okay.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah, great.
So what do we do with that? I don't know.
Right. Conference USA is a funny pull in the context of this conversation also, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I didn't put that second connection together. Obviously I'm a brand thinker, so like the only thing that I could think about was what can the league do to amplify the stories around, let's say, the finals and the semifinal. Really kind of like Super Bowl eyes. When you think about the big game in the United States, you already know what that is. When you think about the tournament in the United States, you already know what that is. So how can the NWSL grab a little bit of that? And it's already in a weird position where you've got the Shield and then the playoffs, so
sure.
Those are just the nature of physics are drawing energy from each other, and
Sure.
I'm not sure exactly what that means, but the Champions League is such a draw, to be able to play in that massive stadium, all of Europe watching. It's got the history from the men's, so like there's so much baked into it.
Yeah.
It's always going to be attractive to top level players. But I think the danger is in just kind of like the other perception of like, I've got to switch up if I want to kind of take my career to the next level. It's going to be a real issue. I do want to shift gears though real quick. The Crystal Dunn era in Gotham. Well, obviously Nicewanger out the door, Yasmin Ryan, Lynn Biandolo. Now Crystal Dunn is the latest of the Gotham exodus.
Yeah.
I continue to think there has to be something afoul there. What was your take when you saw Crystal Dunn decided, hey, I need to move on?
Yeah, and the announcement being that she's moving on and she's pursuing other opportunities. So, I mean, I don't know if that is just PR speak or nice speak for I want to go somewhere else, and I won't burn the bridge on the way out, but I do want to make it clear I'm going somewhere else because I want to go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're right. It seems like this might be one of those stories where a little comes out and then a little more comes out and then eventually the dam breaks. So, you don't know what it is, whether it might not be some dark, nefarious thing. The red flags have been raised. The alarm bells have sounded. Something weird is going on. You call it the Gotham exodus. There's just a lot of talent walking out the door. I mean, this was, the U.S. women's national team in the NWSL, or like, I forget how the way people were phrasing it for a while. So when Crystal Dunn leaves, she walks out the door with all the composure, all the respect, all the accolades. Everybody knows when she walks in the locker room, you have a champion of champions among you. Massive loss for Gotham on top of the other big losses that they've already suffered.
Yeah, and it's not just on the pitch, right? Like
Right.
You look at these are 4 recognizable faces from the national team. Yasmin Ryan is probably like the most recent, but broke through in a big way. So you're losing talent on the pitch, and obviously there could be there was some salary questions as to how they were able to even amass that much talent.
Right.
But from a marketability standpoint, you lose extremely recognizable players that all were still contributing, at different levels, but all definitely contributing. I think it definitely really hurts. One other bit of personnel news that I wanted to hit, Mal Swanson hasn't yet reported to Chicago, I think as of today. There was a quote from Mal where she says, and I quote, "I'd like to thank the club and fans for their understanding during this time. I appreciate the kindness and encouragement from my teammates and all the Star staff, and I hope to be back with the team and playing in front of our fans as soon as I can." End quote. So that's encouraging, but also didn't report, and Chicago is like, kind of had a little bit of a middling season. All in all, I think you are definitely onto something where there's so much more going on behind the scenes than I think that we know.
Right.
And I think when you see these big players just kind of move, especially after a year or maybe even less, you think about like a Jessica Silva too, makes your way to Gotham and now has already basically signed her paperwork to be on the way out, as a super short term, kind of rental.
Yeah.
Totally independent of the NWSL versus the other leagues internationally, but just within the league, there are clearly teams that are doing it right. There are clearly teams that are doing it less right. And I think we're starting to see that kind of bear out in some of these transfers.
Yeah. And I think you're just that's the nature of every pro sports league. So I think it's interesting to monitor. I wonder with Mel Swanson's situation, she didn't report, but I feel like her quote would indicate that she plans to report. Hopefully all is well there on the family front. And like you said, you never know what's going on with somebody, but hopefully, we see her back in the jersey, no longer the Red Stars, the Chicago Stars, Chicago Stars FC. Make sure you get it right.
Nailed it. Couple other moves. Let me know if any of these caught your eye in any kind of way. Messiah Bright traded to Houston. Houston sends $100K of intra-league transfer funds to Angel City, and the transaction includes up to $50K in additional performance-based incentives.
I'm interested to see that one. I thought she looked good in stretches for your Orlando Pride the year before last. She never really hit her stride with Angel City. I think that Messiah Bright is the kind of player who she needs to be in a situation where you just put her in at number 9 and let her play, let her develop, see what she has. She has good size. She has a good ability to get into areas that are dangerous. So I just want to see her play more. I want her on the pitch more, getting more opportunities.
100%. Yeah, definitely a Messiah Bright fan. It just making me laugh when I remember when we were breaking down her original move from Orlando to Angel City, and I was kind of like, oh yeah, I think she's from LA. I think she's from California. Look up, she's from Texas. Okay, so that that came full circle with Messiah going back to Houston. It does say here she's from Dallas, but details.
Mm-hmm.
A couple other moves. Temwa, she extends through 2028. Thompson sisters, they extend through 2028 as well to stay in Angel City. Hannah Betfort signs with the Courage for 2 years with a mutual option for 2027, coming over from the Utah Royals.
Mm-hmm.
Any of those moves? Any notes on those?
I think Betfort could be sneaky for North Carolina Courage. I think it's I love their offseason so far. Obviously, there's not a lot to dislike. I mean, obviously, you lose Cataline, but you add Jaden Shaw. You add Narumi Mira. Now you add Hannah Betfort. It's hard to count out Sean Nahas and everything that he's putting together over there.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was listening to the expected own goals guys, and they were talking about Gotham kind of clearly having slipped from the top 4 and then maybe the top of the league looking more like a top 3.
Yeah.
Could open the door for a team like the Courage. Some rumors, some warmish rumors too, to contend with out in Europe. According to Angel Perez from Mundo Deportivo, Angel reports that both Ingrid Engen and Keira Walsh both want out of Barcelona, with Engen linked to Lyon and Keira Walsh linked to Chelsea.
Yikes.
I'll say, if Barcelona lose those 2 players, I think we're out of the hyperbole zone with regard to saying, I'm not sure that they're still top dog. Because to me, Keira Walsh is at worst Barcelona's 3rd best player. I mean, people are going to say Pariuelo. 10 days out of 10, I'd rather have Keira Walsh than Pariuelo. Wow. I love Pariuelo's game. She's a young player. She's going to improve quite a bit. But I just think Keira Walsh is incredible. She's one of the 5 or 6 best players in the world. Chelsea do not have a player like that. It's also bumming me out that Keira Walsh has been linked to Arsenal forever, and they haven't been able to close the deal. If Keira Walsh goes to Chelsea, I think they at least become the betting favorite for the Champions League.
I like it. That's a good take. If they get Keira Walsh, then you play Walsh and Cuthbert at the same time? Are they your double pivot defensive midfielders? That would be pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Cuthbert, roams a little bit farther upfield, probably kind of eats into like what Nuskin does a little bit.
They'd be real deep at center mid, yeah.
And I think just to kind of rewind back, from an NWSL standpoint, you can clearly see quite the gap, with like that much talent. I mean, because these are players that shine on the international stage. They shine in Europe. They shine in the Champions League. And now they're all kind of like grouping onto this Chelsea side. A little bit terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder how much of that it's even hard to say though, because obviously Emma Hayes is so widely respected in world football. I wonder what Sonia Bombastor is kind of cooking over there. I mean, clearly, or maybe Let's posit this. Let's be the first podcast to throw this out there. Maybe Emma Hayes is pushing Keira Walsh to Chelsea also. Maybe she's expanded her reach, and now she's just out here moving all the chess pieces to Chelsea. Emma, you fooled us with this U.S. women's national team appointment. Now you're just taking over world football and rigging the game for Chelsea.
Quite the elaborate ruse. And then for Barcelona, Keira Walsh, what do you do there? I don't know that they have the player necessarily waiting in the wings that steps into that role.
Yeah, that would be interesting. It would definitely be, like you said, like you'd be losing depth. But okay, so we think about their midfielders. You obviously have Alexia, you have Bonmati, you have Patry. They list Kika of Nazareth as a midfielder. I think she's more of an attacking focused player personally.
Mm-hmm.
Vicky Lopez, I think largely the same. Hard to tell with Lopez though, because she's such a young player. They put her in attacking spots now. Who's to say that she doesn't kind of develop, grow maybe into more of a midfield player. But yeah, you could always play CGH in the midfield too. I feel like you could kind of drop her in. Claudia Pina is an option. There are no shortage of good players, but your point stands. I think there will be a lot of questions to answer, but luckily, we're worldwide. We got homies who can answer this question. So please, MLS,
lots of them.
Please jump into the YouTube comments. Anybody, all the Barca fans who have been kind enough to support the show, let us know. What are we missing? What happens next?
Love that. Great call. One other rumor-ish to hit. Chloe Kelly, via her Instagram, had some interesting things to say, did Chloe Kelly, and I quote, "A key lesson I've learned in my life is that whilst I can't control someone's negative behavior towards me, I can control how long I am prepared to tolerate it." End quote.
I don't like it. Not that I don't. It's not that I don't like that Chloe Kelly said it. I think she should be honest, and I think she should speak up if she feels like she is experiencing that negative behavior toward her. Her comments in that IG post would, I think, lead me to believe. I don't think I'm jumping to any big conclusions here, but her comments would lead me to believe that perhaps the club is hesitant to approve a transfer to Manchester United, because they are obviously blood rivals and fighting for a Champions League spot. I want to quote a wise man who once said this about players transferring. This coach was asked about a player transferring to a rival team and if he has ever stood in the way of that in his time and during his managerial career. He said, quote, "Never ever. I give my opinion to the club and they decide if the transfer suits both sides and the player. Why? I think that means you're a small club. Big clubs, they don't care. They make decisions for the benefit of all three parties, players and both clubs, and agents sometimes." End quote. I love that. You could write a book on the and agents sometimes. I want to hear all those stories. But I'm going to go one more step here. This manager, this mystery manager, who you probably already know who it is, also went out to say, quote, "So really it's not a problem. They want to go to Chelsea or United or Liverpool, whatever. What's the problem? They're happy to be there. The club is happy with the transfer. The other club is happy with the amount of money they spend. It is fine." End quote. That is from one Josep Guardiola, the manager of the lesser-known Manchester City team, the men's team. So I am in fully support of that. Obviously, I'm a Pep guy, but in general, if a player wants a transfer and they are eyeing a certain club, the other part of this, though, is that other club has to pay fair market value. If that other club is willing to pay fair market value, do the deal. Don't worry about, oh no, if I transfer Chloe Kelly over to United, they're going to beat us for a Champions League spot. Play the matches, trust yourself, trust your scouting, do what you got to do, go win the games.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you think she could beat you, then you don't let her out the door to begin with.
Right.
Totally agree with that. All right, man. Quick programming reminder. In the coming weeks, we'll continue to track all 8 Champions League clubs across Europe. They're all in action this weekend, kicking off Friday and I think wrapping up. I think Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, we've got our 8 Champions League teams in action across all 4 of those days. Should be a great weekend. We'll continue to track these personnel changes in the NWSL, as well as any big European moves as they happen. And final reminder, February 7th, YouTube, your boys will be live, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, immediately following the UEFA Women's Champions League quarterfinal draw. Be sure to subscribe, mark your calendars for that. Should be a ton of fun. Anything else you want to hit before we get out of here?
I think we did it. I will say live production meeting on the show. I realized once again, okay, so we talk Chelsea Arsenal. That's good. That covers some things. We talk Aston Villa City. We talk the ITC derby between Arsenal and Manchester City. I don't know. Are we becoming too pigeonholed here, or do we need to expand to the other matches in the league? I'll let you guys answer in the comments, but what do you think, Tino?
I mean, I kind of like the tracking these Champions League clubs vibes. And I think tangentially, like a team like Manchester United, there's the Chloe Kelly connection. They're now in second in the league. So I think it's going to naturally open the doors for what's happening across these other leagues. I think Barcelona, they play Levante this weekend. Lyon's got Montpellier. That'll be some good opportunities for us to check out those two sides.
Nice.
So I think, keep our as many fingers as we can on as many pulses as we can to kind of try to keep up.
I like it. And you just opened the door for me to take a free shot. Manchester United, if you'd like us to talk about you more, make the Champions League.
Easy peasy. Well, be careful what you wish for. All right, man. I think we did it. It's been another episode of Into the Channel. Thank you for watching, listening, following, liking, subscribing, just playing, hanging out with your boys. And remember, like if you liked, subscribe or follow Into the Channel, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to watch or listen. Leave us a review over your favorite podcast app. Links to all of our socials in the show notes of this episode. And I do mean all of our socials: Instagram, YouTube, Threads, Blue Sky. Your boys are out here. Connect with us. We'd love to hear from you. And a big thank you to my co-host as well, Mr. Grand Angle, he'll be an enemy this weekend. But for now, he's my guy. I appreciate you, bro.
Likewise, buddy. Up until the point of the match, the 90 minutes, we don't speak. That's fine. Mm-hmm. And then 5 days later, then we have to take another 90 minutes of being enemies in the League Cup. Totally fine. I wish you good luck in all your other endeavors, but prepare to be crushed.
That's cold.
You got to have some more faith. You're making it less fun when you don't fight back a little bit. I mean, come on. Like, we lost 2 of our last 3 WSL matches.
Well, you know that I have to swing wildly. Last week we're taking the WSL, and it started then with a gigantic win at Chelsea. And now it's pretty much over. I'm with Leanne. Let's just blow it all up. Leanne right. Also, by the way, mentioned that in jest that she thought she would have drawn a $5 million transfer fee.
Let's go. Let's go. Like, she's
of course, of fucking course. Let's go.
Damn right.
If I had the $5 million, that's an easy check to sign.
No doubt. Shout out to the legend, as always. Great friend of the program, Leanne Sanderson. And thank you to everybody else for checking us out. We will talk to you all soon, and we will see you next time.